Welcome to the Path to Tampa, the Burnt Orange Sports Network's first episode with Lindsey Plotkin, covering women's basketball as a podcast. Lindsey, welcome on board.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So every Wednesdays now, Ikey or every Thursdays, Ikey, myself, and Lindsey will be bringing to you women's basketball, and we haven't actually talked as a group, or Ikey and I haven't talked since December, the middle end of December, right, Ikey? So we have a lot to catch up on. So Shea Holley broke a record, most wins ever as in the NCAA for Texas women's basketball. Austin grown. Lindsey, let's start with you. What kind, like, how put into words what that really means?
It's huge. I mean, Shea Holley kind of like a very similar story to Brock Cunningham last year, where it's like Austin kid, been a UT fan for forever. Her dad played football at UT, and so she always knew she wanted to play basketball at Texas. Two older sisters who both played at Texas State, comes from just like a super athletic family and just is Texas through and through. I think it's huge that if anybody in that program, it was going to be Shea Holley that broke that record. And I don't think she said she never saw herself getting there, but I think if it was to be anybody, it would have been her.
Yeah, Lindsay, that's a good point. But uh, Shea Holley, she's been wearing the burnt orange for a while now, and I think in this day and age, it's cool to see somebody stick it throughout their entire collegiate playing career. When I mean, it's cool to see somebody like Shea who takes pride in being a Longhorn and like repping the school. I mean, especially now with the transfer portal era and a lot of players and basketball and football too, but they just jump ship whenever stuff isn't necessarily going their way and not getting the playing time they want. And I mean, it's very cool. It's almost refreshing to see uh someone stay at a program that long and then grow into such a big role on a team.
We talk about growing into a role. I mean, to me, the story of Shea Holley kind of starts last year when Rory went down, and then Shea became, that go-to defender for this team. I mean, do we really think that team goes to the Elite Eight without Shea Holley? I don't think so. And I mean, that's all credit to her. She is a such a talent. I mean, she brings a 3 point to the team, but her wins as a stat should be credited to a certain point as well to everything Vic Schaefer has done. I do think the combination of Shea and Vic um have allowed Shea to break this record, but I don't know if Shea gets there without Vic. I mean, we talk about this. The program was kind of in some dark times before COVID, and then Vic comes around and they go to three Elite Eights. I just think the overall combination of them two are a huge reason for why Texas women's basketball has been so successful in the past 5 years. You know, like I don't know if Texas goes out this far, win this many games without either or. So it's a super cool stat for Shea, but I a lot of the not a lot of the credit, but a good amount of credit I feel like should go to Vic because Vic didn't recruit Shea, and you look at how you look at their relationship, and they're like you know they're very close. Like you talk to Vic, hey, like, what do you think Shay should do down the road? Vic jumps on the boat. She should go in and coach it, in that accent. So it's super happy for Shay. I don't think it could have happened to a better person. And it's hey, she's got the opportunity to smash the record because how many games left do we have? At least 12 games left on the schedule, and that's just the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hit it. I mean, 11 games. It's kind of feels like yesterday, Zach. We were talking about how saying looking at the schedule, what's the SEC going to be like? Could this be a 30-win team? And now, I mean, now the season's flying by. That Maryland win, by the way, was the largest margin of victory over a top 10 team in Texas history. It's their third top 10 win of the season, which is pretty special.
So
It's hard to do.
so interesting stat about that. I think it might have been Danny Davis, but that could be wrong. I don't quote me on that. Someone tweeted out that in the past 12 days, the wins between Alabama and and Maryland are the largest ranked margin of victories, like back to back in the span, whatever. It's Texas basketball is playing really well. South Carolina was tough. Madison Booker didn't play well, and that kind of brings me into the next point with how good she's been playing. How far can this team go with Madison, and what happens with that? Because when Madison's on her game, I mean, we've seen it this past month. Horns are rolling. I mean, outside of South Carolina, they dominated Bama, dominated Maryland. Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, I think like Madison got off to a pretty slow start in the SEC, but like we saw last year what she can do and what she's capable of. And that was without like Rory Harmon by her side for the majority of the season. I mean, Rory got hurt like 12 games into the season. And so Madison was just, as a freshman, shoved into the point guard role. And now she's been able to kind of step back into the shooting guard role. And I think that's somewhere where she feels a lot more comfortable. And I definitely think teams have started to plan for that. And I think she's adjusted to that well, and especially against Maryland and against Alabama, like she really showed out. And obviously, like she struggled against South Carolina, but the entire team did. And so it wasn't just her, but now she's really found her stride. And I think the rest of the team has responded with that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at, Booker scored, I think it was 7 points against South Carolina, but just in the last two games, she's put up 50 points. Um, I think it's very telling to see how this Texas team responded after a tough loss to South Carolina. By the way, Texas' only two losses this year out of two to top five teams at the time. Notre Dame was ranked third, but but also the way this team's playing defense. I mean, they held Maryland to 18 points in the first half, and so yeah, Booker, if she's scoring, they can go far. But what I think is even more telling is that combined with the defense. But also, I mean, Booker can't be the only one contributing on offense too. Um, but that's also, the beauty of this Texas team. Players like Shea Holly, Taylor Jones, um, Rory Harmon. Yeah, they have multiple ways to get it done, but I think their defense has the potential to take them all the way to the Final Four.
I think they got like 11 really good basketball players. I mean, you look at the men's team, you look at the women's team. I mean, just the women are so much deeper. Like they have two full rotations that can just let alone Taylor Jones and Kyla Oldacre. I mean,
Yep.
they're two of the best centers in the SEC. Like Taylor will start and have a great game, and then Kyla will come in and just completely dominate down low. And then Jack Langham Tana has been great. I think she's not talked about enough. I do think the freshmen are not they're not playing to their potential. I think it's kind of getting lost in all of the and all the rotations and Vic still trying to figure out what works best. But we've seen Justice Carlton and Jordan Lee both hit 30 points this season, but we haven't seen them play consistent basketball. So, and it's hard to do. This is an all-star squad. Rory Harmon, Madison Booker, those are two WNBA players. Like there's a
Right.
lot of really good players on this team. I think Jordan Lee has WNBA, Justice Carlton has WNBA ceilings. I'm going to go ahead and say that Brianna Preston has a WNBA ceiling too. I think she has the potential to be the next great guard here on the 40 acres. And we haven't seen the freshmen fully reach their potential, I want to say, because all three of those girls are really good. We've seen them flash how good they are, but we haven't seen them work together. And that's a good problem to have when you're a two-loss team against two top five teams in the country. There's still some kinks to work out, but going back to Madison Booker, like when you got a girl that can drop 20 points in the first half, night in, night out, it's pretty good stuff. Lindsay, let
Yeah,
me ask you a question. So sorry to cut you off. You covered the team two
mhm.
seasons ago, correct?
Yeah,
For the Daily Texan.
yeah.
I'm covering the team for the Daily Texan right
Mhm.
now. So we have two different perspectives of what this squad is.
Mhm.
How does this team differ from the team that you covered 2 years ago?
I think you covered it completely. Just depth. I think the past two seasons, this is a team who two of its star players have been injured 2 years ago. It was Aaliyah Moore last season. It was Rory Harmon. And this is, I think, the first year, like all three of them are healthy since their freshman year. And so I think we get to see Rory and Aaliyah together for the first time in a while, and I think that's been really helpful. And like last year and 2 years ago, even we would regularly see people like Madison Booker, Rory Harmon, Shea Holly playing 40 minutes a game, like regularly. which is not sustainable for anybody to be playing that much. And I think now Texas just has to learn how to use its depth because this is the first time since I've been covering the team that I've truly seen this team have a lot of depth. Like they're going into 10, 11 players, when in the past it's been 7 or 8 max.
Yeah, I mean that's great stuff. That's a good point. And speaking of the depth, all the talent on this Texas team. How about all the talent in the SEC? I mean, as of now, the SEC is projected 10 teams in the field. Um, they could get up to 11, but this is a Texas team. They're sitting at fourth in the SEC at 4-1 in conference play, and they really control their own destiny as far as winning the conference. Ahead of them are Kentucky, LSU, and South Carolina, and they play all three of them. They get South Carolina at home, and then they go at Kentucky, and then they turn around and get LSU back at home. Like Texas, very well. I mean, they have a fighter shot at winning the SEC regular tournament or regular season title, excuse me. And I think it's very fair to say that Texas is ready for the SEC women's basketball rise. I mean, I think they've proved it the way they've played. So
It's a monster schedule. It's
yeah,
it's it's crazy. I feel like the SEC's always been kind of that conference for women's basketball. We're kind of seeing it in men's now. But I mean, they got Tennessee coming up. That's LSU right now is 20-0, you know, and I believe they're home. They're in the Moody Center, and Texas is undefeated in the Moody Center this year. So I mean, it's just it kind of puts butterflies in my stomach. I don't know about you guys, but it's really exciting stuff. So Tennessee's coming up. Moody Center is undefeated. I hope they get a good crowd there. We'll see. The men's haven't been doing too hot, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. Lindsay, what do you think? What do you think the girls need to do? Same for you, Ikey. Let's start with Lindsay. What do you think the girls need to do to pull one out at the Moody Center?
This is a really tough Tennessee team because they do everything really well. And I was on the media availability with Vic Schaefer and Rory Harmon earlier, and Vic pointed out that this team is 3-3 in SEC play. Their 3 losses are by 4 points total. And so this is a team that's going to take you down to the wire. They do everything really well. They shoot the 3 point really well. And then if you cover the 3 point, they'll drive to the basket. And they're really efficient in the lane, scoring around the basket. And so Texas is going to have to play an all around really good and really confident game, and they're going to have to play really well. And they're going to have to work well as a team because this Tennessee team is going to just shut down, even on defense, they're going to shut down everything that Texas wants to do. And on offense, they're just going to spread out the floor. So I think this is going to be a really tough win, but I think if Texas plays really well, like it did against Maryland, it has a chance to win.
yeah. I mean, this Tennessee group, they're a pretty solid bunch. Yeah, Lindsay, you mentioned they shoot the three ball well. I mean, they made 33s in a game in mid-December. Schaefer was talking about that in an interview I was reading online, but they have five players averaging double digits. Most of them are upperclassmen, and they score. I mean, they also have the most three-point attempts per game, most offensive rebounds per game. They average around 20. So, you know, I think that Texas is going to have to win the battle off the glass. But this Tennessee team, I mean, they force a lot of turnovers. They're top five in turnovers. I mean, Texas is going to have to take care of the basketball. And but yeah, I mean, this is a historic rivalry. Um, they used to play going back from around 1982 to like 2021. They played for 40 years straight, except
Mhm.
for the COVID year. And coach, they called it it was the We Back Pat game back when it was Pat Summit with Tennessee playing against Texas head coach Jody Conrad. But Schaefer has a lot of history playing against that Tennessee program, and he was saying that every team that coached, every Tennessee team that Summit coached, they were just a tough group. He said it wasn't fun playing them, coached by her, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, he's familiar with Tennessee, but it's an interesting little storyline there.
I'm so
Yeah.
I'm so I'm so interested in this game. Sorry, Lindsay. I mean, look, you got two of the best coaches in women's hoops, and Talasia Cooper, Madison Booker, two of the best sophomores in women's college basketball. I think Talasia's averaging like 18 a night. Tennessee,
Yep.
I think, is averaging like 94 a night. Insane stats. And I understand Texas might not be very familiar with the Lady Volunteers, but neither are the Lady Volunteers that um straightforward with Texas. They are both not familiar with each other. And Vic Schaefer squads are resilient on defense and they'll make you rebound and they'll make you get to the basket. And then the Summit teams, I feel like the Lady Volunteers, I feel like are stretched the perimeter shooting team. So I feel like, Lindsay, tell me if I'm wrong. I can tell you if I'm wrong. I feel like we're meeting an unstoppable force versus an immovable object.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's exactly what it is. And Kim Caldwell's done a great job with this Tennessee team. Everyone was kind of worried going into this year, but she's made it her own and she has taken this team over and they love to play for her, same way that Texas players love to play for Vic Schaefer. And so I think it's a great coaching matchup and it's just, like you said, Zach, an immovable force versus an unmovable object. Or an unstoppable force versus an unmovable object.
um,
Right.
what was I gonna say? I just it's I mean the turnaround that they've had this year is with Tennessee, it's so surprising. They lose to LSU by two, Oklahoma by one, Vanderbilt by one at Vanderbilt. It's going to be interesting. Ikey, what do you think is the score is going to be, and how long do you think it's going to take for Vic's jacket to come off?
I think Vic's jacket's coming off probably pretty early. I think around, I don't know, before halftime. I'm gonna go with that. It's gonna be pretty good game, but I mean something's got to give. So rubber's gonna meet the road, and something's gonna have to give with these two teams going at it. Um, I see it going deep into the fourth quarter. I mean, both these teams have played really competitive basketball all year, but you know, I, I'll take Texas. Give me like 87, 83 range. Point margin of victory around 4 points. I'll go with the Longhorns at home. I mean, they moved the game to prime time, kind of a late game change. I think they can get a good crowd out there. But yeah, give me the Longhorns. Coach Schaefer pulling it out.
Lindsay, what do you think? I also want to know how long you think the jacket's going to stay on for.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. His jacket hasn't come off the past two games. Like I was watching the Auburn game and the Maryland game, and it stayed on the entire time. So
It
I
came
think,
off against South Carolina. It actually came off in a minute and a half. It was
yeah, it was like a minute.
it was that had to have been record breaking, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't know, but ask Danny. He probably keeps track of that stat. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Texas can pull it out. I think it's going to be tough, and I think it's going to be a close game. I think I'm going to go with 75 to 71 Texas.
That's those are both perfectly reasonable predictions. I also think the Horns win this one. I think it's going to be more comfortable of a victory just because I don't think this Tennessee squad has ever met a defensive team like Vic, a team that refuses to shoot the three, completely traditional basketball against a pretty, in my opinion, Tennessee is a pretty progressive offense in how they play. So I think Texas, I think Texas is only going to shoot four threes, to be honest. I mean, Tennessee is tall, they're long. I think they get to the basket and not force shots. I think they make 14 free throws and they win. Let's go 81-68. I really think that this Texas team is, I mean, we've called this podcast the path to Tampa. I think this is the year they finally break that barrier, go to Tampa. And what other way to do that than be fully healthy in the end of January, take on a very high level Tennessee squad and win by 16 or 17 points. So that's how I feel about it. Lindsay, thank you for joining us on your first podcast. Guys, Lindsay has a really cool podcast that comes out on Sundays and it's not sports related. Are we calling it UT Unhooked?
I
Is
don't,
that
I
is
think,
that a
I think
working is
I
that a
know
working
we
title?
decided on, let me find it. I think we decided on out of your league.
Out of your league. That's
There we
awesome.
go. Yeah.
So I know you guys that listen probably get a little sick of us talking just about sports. But now we bring to you a new podcast by three wonderful people, Debony, Serta, Lindsey Plotkin, obviously, and then Emma Hutchinson, three seniors talking all things UT outside of sports. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. Ikey, also, thank you for joining, grinding work, taking some time out of your day for this podcast. Thank you for listening to the Burnt Orange Sports Network. We will be back next week recapping a couple games and also previewing a couple more games. Zach Davis alongside Lindsey Plotkin and Ikey Collier. We will see you next week.